안녕하세요. 리뷰어 JYK입니다. 네, 하이엔드 미넨 2025에서 굉장히 주목할 만한 이벤트가 있다고 해서 이렇게 지금 왔습니다. 지금 또 많은 분들이 이렇게 기다리고 있죠. 여러분들 정말 또 좋아하시는 음원이죠. 아네테 아스크빅의 리버티라고 하는 그 음원을 멀티채널로 바꿔가지고 곡에 대해서 설명도 좀 해주고 그 다음에 그 음원도 들어보는 그 이벤트가 있다고 해서 이렇게 왔습니다. 그래서 제가 좀 이따가 이제 들어가게 되면 안에 들어가서 한번 소리를 또 들어볼 거고요. 어떤 소리가 나는지. 이 키오디오는요, 여러분 정말 잘 아시는 엔코어, 그 다음에 아이겐탁트라고 하는 그 클래스 D 모듈을 만든 브루노 푸지에이가 만든 액티브 스피커 브랜드입니다. 그래서 나중에 제가 또 브루노 푸지에이를 또 모시고 인터뷰까지 한번 진행해보는 시간을 가지도록 하겠습니다. 그러면 같이 한번 들어가서 한번 보도록 하겠습니다.
Our bodies are hurting like hell. They promise to never leave us alone. Our hearts are breaking like bones. Picking stars like apples from the sky, threatening to throw them in the sea, so we won't have anything to gaze upon. What happened to liberty and the bridges we almost got done? What happened to that? Was going to take us home? Dreams are breaking like glass. But
welcome to our YouTube channel. My name is Bruno Putzes. I'm the lead engineer at Kiaudio, where I design speakers.
Could you briefly introduce the Kiaudio?
Kiaudio is a company that started, I think, almost exactly 10 years ago. We had a vision that had to be more collaborative with the room that they work in. Loudspeaker sort of is very critical to how it's placed in the room and usually produces too much bass, and then you have to add room treatment and so on. And we had the idea, no, hang on, actually this is a problem that should not only be solved on the room end, we should actually look at the speaker end as well. This is how the idea came about, to make cardioid speaker, which allows you to cut out half of the impact of the room. That was the start of the company. So that's always our view. We don't want to play any audiophile games with exotic materials and whatsoever. It is just pure engineering to make a product work well and work comfortably and easily for people. And on the Key 3 you recall that we have like 4 woofers which form a cardioid array together, and then another trick that we used was the side woofers together with the mid-range to form a cardioid array at higher frequencies, and so this actually became like a very well-controlled speaker, and we added further features like phase correction, which turned out to be very, very important for conveying musical timing. Then later on added features like the BXT, the bass extension unit, and now the latest addition to the product lineup, which we are exceedingly proud of, is the Key 7. It is like a smaller version of the Key 3, but on the other hand, it is a much more complete product in that it's got network connectivity, both wired. For instance, in Dante we have a Dolby Atmos rig with all the speakers connected. We're also launching wireless streaming so that you can effectively play music from a pair of speakers that is simply plugged into the mains and connected to your Wi-Fi network, and then you can use Spotify Connect, Tidal Connect. So all these features that a modern consumer would expect from an audio system are now built in.
Why do you make the Kiaudio an active speaker brand?
A lot of the goals that we wanted to achieve are simply impossible in a passive speaker. You cannot phase correct a passive speaker. You cannot have excursion control in a passive speaker. You cannot make a seal box in a passive speaker. And it's very difficult to make a cardioid passive speaker. So it has to be an active speaker. And of course, for me, the choice is then obvious because I've been making these tiny little amplifiers for my whole life. So it's the natural order of progression into active speakers. There's also another reason why the market is going in that the amplifiers that I make, as you say, they're quite popular and they are highly regarded. But people who simply then take the module, put it in a box and make a nice amplifier out of it, they actually come back asking, how do I differentiate my amplifier that uses your module from someone else's amplifier that uses the same module? And my answer is, well, unfortunately, you probably can't. Because of the advantages of active speakers, a standalone amplifier is technically an outdated concept, but it is also commercially an outdated concept because now everyone can make a nice standalone amplifier with Class D modules. It sounds fine. So if you want to make a product that really has an impact on the users' lives and hence on the market, it will have to be a more intelligent product. It will have to do more than just amplify. And the choice that we have made to just build the entire system into one product and completely optimize that product to the maximum, to a degree that you simply cannot ever do with separate components.
Could you explain the Kiaudio core technology like active wave focusing?
So active wave focusing is simply our trade name for cardioid beamforming. There are other speakers out there that are cardioid beamforming, but what they tend to do is they use a resistance labyrinth and a single driver to create the cardioid, whereas we simply arrange all the drivers, the mid-range, the side woofers and rear woofers. If I then simply phase the outputs to the different drivers correctly, I can make them all operate together as a cardioid. So for instance, if you want to get a lot of sound out of a cardioid, you want to keep the drivers quite far apart, because otherwise the forward output also cancels, so you need to get a distance. But if that distance is too large, then you can no longer create a cardioid to a high frequency. So the way we bridge that, you have on the Key 3 a mid-range sitting in front, you have two side woofers. Well, in the frequency range between 250 Hertz and 750 Hertz, the output from the mid-range and the side woofers is overlapped, that you get a cancellation behind the speaker and you get reinforcement in front. And then below 250 Hertz, the same is done but between the side woofers and the rear woofers. And that way we can actually actively control directivity from 50 Hertz to 750 Hertz. Above 750 Hertz, essentially the width of the cabinet controls directivity automatically, because it's with that sort of width of a cabinet, the transition frequency, the natural transition frequency is about 700-ish. Below 50, we actually let the thing go omnidirectional, because we explicitly suggest to our users that they should place the speaker width close to the wall. In doing so, the omnidirectional portion, so the sub portion 50 Hertz and down, reflects back from the wall fully in phase, and then all you need to do is shelf that part down by 6 decibels and you get a perfectly flat response, while at the same time putting out much less unwanted bass energy in the room. So the direct sound is the same, but the room response is decreased by 6 decibels so that you get a much more defined low frequency output. So the cardioid beamforming is simply, we call it active wave focusing. I came up with the idea when I realized that after phase correction, the whole wavefront emanating from the whole speaker essentially coalesced to a spherical wave that seemed to emanate directly from the mid-range. So all the other drivers, even though there's a couple on the back, there's a couple on the side, the actual wavefront that travels away from the speaker is virtually identical to a single point source directly in front of the mid-range. So that's why I thought, well, active wave focusing might be a nice way of explaining the point.
Could you please explain the products you used in the event?
As you know, sound-wise, I always go for neutral, so that part is easy. We actually got the master files, which we've loaded on a laptop, and they're played out using a Dolby rendering software into a Dante virtual audio card. That then goes to a little monitor controller, professional monitor controller, the RTW Touch 5, which allows us to sort of set the individual speaker levels and also fold the LFE channel into the 3 front channels. It spits out 11 Dante channels to the 11 speakers, and so the time alignment and the gain alignment is all done in that little monitor controller. The 3 front channels are full BXD stacks. You don't need a separate subwoofer for the LFE, so we fold that into the fronts, and then we've got key 7s everywhere else. It's a very simple and straightforward setup. Then we have a secondary setup that is connected to the same Dante network using a Lingdorf MP60 and a Blu-ray player and a streaming device to demonstrate the new pure audio streaming service. It is a lot of speakers, but in terms of types of equipment and so on, it's a fairly straightforward setup.
So do you have plan to make new products?
Well, inevitably, you can't stop designing new products. Personally, for me and my right-hand man, Bart, we have a list of software features that we still want to add to the Key 7, and we want to roll those out first before we start looking at new products. We are still talking about it, so many ideas floating around, and I think that we would like to just repeat the success of the Key 7 in a way that the Key 7 has been absolutely hit the bullseye in terms of what people expect from a small speaker and what it can do. So we really want to be sure before we even start on a new product that we really have the product definition down to a T. So I cannot tell you anything about future products for the simple reason that we don't know what it's going to be ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Highend amplifier is in the Kiaudio speaker?
Yes, correct. So that is currently the case for all key audio products. Use all Highend. There is actually a respin of Highend, which is being presented at the show as well. As usual, it sort of embroiders on the same theme, meaning even more loop gain, so even lower distortion, even lower noise. So yes, Highend is still evolving.
오케이. 네, 이번에 정말 유명한 프로 오디오, 그 다음에 홈 오디오용 스피커 브랜드죠. 앰피온 부스에 지금 이렇게 나와 있고요. 이번에 앰피온이 멀티채널 이멀시브 오디오를 이번에 시연을 한다고 해요. 사용하는 앰프와 프로세서가 누프람이라고 합니다. 그래서 들어가서 어떤 스피커가 사용되는지 한번 들어가서 보도록 하겠습니다. 이번에 이렇게 3채널 이렇게 스피커들이 있고요. 그 다음에 좌우로 서라운드 백 이렇게 해서 스피커들이 있고, 천장에 총 4채널의 애트모스 스피커가 설치가 되어 있습니다. 좀 이따가 제가 음악을 한번 들어볼 거고요. 앰피온의 대표님을 모시고 국내에서 소개되고 있는 크립톤 3X라고 하는 플래그십 스피커에 대해서 좀 질문하는 시간을 가져보도록 하겠습니다.
Ansi from Amhion Loudspeakers here. We are at Munich Highend 2025. So welcome to the Amhion booth.
I heard that Amphion's release new products.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, we are
good.
actually releasing 3 new products this year, because what the tweeter, which we originally developed for the flagship Krypton 3X, is now in the Argon range. And of course, totally different price point, so it's accessible to much more people. We are very happy with it. It's very linear, super low distortion, and goes very high, actually over 50 kilohertz. So very smooth, very detailed, and pairs very, very well with our waveguide technology.
Could you please introduce the flagship?
The Krypton.
Yeah, Krypton.
Okay,
Yes.
the Krypton, of course, is something that we've been working with since the beginning of the company. And the idea there is to have a full range speaker that works also in smaller spaces. One thing, when you look at the Krypton, one particular thing is these holes on the side, and they are not actually for cosmetic reasons. They are there to alter the dispersion pattern into a cardioid. It's so-called resistant enclosure, so that there won't be much radiation from the side walls. And of course, then you have the 2/8 and a large waveguide, so you have a very large point source, and you get very, very good power handling, pressure, coupling to the air, and kind of a lot of the big speakers can be very impressive. But to me, one of the problems is that they tend to maybe miss the nuances a little bit every now and then, and that's not the case in Krypton. So you have the kind of best of both worlds. You have the power, the authority, but you have the detail and intimacy as well.
And please explain Krypton cardio technology detail?
We have two 8 inches in their own enclosures, and we have this perforated, carefully calculated resistive enclosure that changes the dispersion pattern of the speaker to become a cardioid, so you don't have, even in difficult acoustics, you don't get any problems in the mid-range.
Why do you offer far inside and what kind of effect?
The reason, of course, it has a 10-inch because it's truly a full-range speaker that goes down to 21 hertz. So we need a large, long through woofer. And of course, in order to make it aesthetically pleasing and easier to pair in the interior, the only place we could have is in the side.
Okay. Can you explain the UDD waveguide? Yeah.
We're using waveguides make the drivers more uniform, because one of the problems of speaker building is that how do we join these drivers that are very different in terms of moving mass, their sonic properties, their dispersion patterns. How do we join them into one cohesive unit? And one of the things we do with the waveguide is that we lower the crossover point to 1600 hertz. Why is it important? Human hearing is not linear. There's actually so-called critical hearing range from 2000 to 5000 hertz. And of course, the same way as you will never have a chair manufacturer putting a seam in the middle of the cushion, they always hide it to the side. We do the same with the waveguide, and this is the UDD technology. It's uniformly directive diffusion. So we join the drivers into one cohesive unit, and we also make sure that their dispersion patterns uniform throughout the wide frequency band, because what we have to remember, we are never listening to the direct sound from the speaker to you. We are always listening to the direct sound and the reflections. So we have to make sure that also the reflections have a correct balance, and that's what we do with the UDD technology, this uniformly directive diffusion.
So what kind of your speaker driver in Krypton 3X?
We have been working together with the SEAS for a long time. So the mid-range and the woofer come from SEAS, and then this the tweeter is something that it's a 25 millimeter titanium dome, very high quality tweeters.
Okay. So can you explain what do you want to make sound philosophy?
The goal for our speakers is to disappear. I mean, we are really only happy when they disappear and leave you and your music or your favorite movie or whatever sound. The speaker's job is to really bring the emotion that is present in the studio all the way to the home listener. So that's kind of what we are trying to do at Amphion. So of course there's a lot of technical things we have to make sure, as I talked about, the driver integration and all kinds of things, so that the speaker works well, but it also needs to work well with your room. And one of the nicest things I've heard from one of our customers said that, one thing I like about Amphion is that they treat the listening room as their friend, not as their enemy. And this is, of course, we are all the time thinking of acoustics. How do the speakers behave in the room? How can they be placed? And this is very different to a modern approach where people, for example, take USB and try to force things into a certain mold. And we kind of take the more organic approach. So for us, the music is the sacred thing. So we are very happy and humbled to be part of that chain, to be able to help the music makers capture the magic and the home music enthusiasts to enjoy that magic.
Okay. Amphion speakers match Dufresne.
Why are we together?
Dufresne.
This is actually the reason I know Jason Lim, who is the owner of New Prime, for many years ago. We actually worked already together with him when he was running New Force. So of course when Jason said that, hey, we are looking for the speaker partner, we want to go to Munich, I said, sure, why not? So this is more of a friendship than anything commercial, but who knows what comes out of it. Definitely the products work very well together. So.
Most of the time, something worth fighting or dying for is all I ever wanted of life. Started to buy wrapped up in little truths upon the hooks they use to pull in boys are just my mistakes. So close, I learned to fight it, to fight for myself, to recognize the eyes with eyes behind that only wanna hurt somebody else, and no one can hide it, at least not for long. But once you go toe to toe with the unknown, your gut won't ever guide you too far wrong. So close, so many souls.
While the pillars all fall, got the money going up your nose, you got the data, don't control where it goes. What you have left is getting down to the bone. Your only memories on your mobile phone, and the call will rise while the pillars all fall. While the pillars all fall. while the pillars all fall.